We welcome you to hour number 3 of this Wednesday live right here on the early line on SportsGrid. One final hour to go up until 11 a.m. Eastern time. An MVP conversation in the association, preview of games later tonight in the NBA and in college basketball as well. We'll look at the early lines for the divisional round weekend in the National Football League playoffs. In the third PGA Tour event of the year starts tomorrow in La Quinta, California. It's bright, it's sunny, unlike the East Coast that is cold and snowy. So, Donnie, let's continue our MVP conversation that we ended out hour 2 with, that begins hour number 3. We asked the public, at this point of the NBA season, who should win the NBA MVP? Joel Embiid got most of the votes at 46%. Nikola Jokic around 37%. And other bringing nearly 17% of the votes as well. Donnie, you said Embiid. You agree with the public. How come?
It's because you're only lining it up again. And granted, these teams don't play all that much in head-to-head matchups. So you sort of get that, extra boost when you dominate a performance like Joel Embiid did last night. And when I say dominated a performance, we don't look at it from a perspective of who was the catalyst for the Sixers to win that game. It was Joel Embiid. Another 40-point effort out of Joel Embiid. 10 assists last night to go along with 7 rebounds. Jokic he didn't even show up in that game. 25 points and 19 rebounds is absolutely incredible. But you are going to give the lift here to Joel Embiid because his team won that basketball game. And as I talked about in the last segment, you're lining this up saying, what did we see last? It's a great award. Now, what would that award price be here on the FanDuel Sportsbook? And then also, what would the poll look like if Nikola Jokic had 41 points, 10 assists, and 7 rebounds and won that basketball game over Joel Embiid? We might be looking at things differently, but it's sensational, both of these two guys. I love the fact that, Ben, they're both big men fighting for this award in a guards league. It just makes it all that more intriguing.
And we're talking about the guys that have won the last 3 NBA MVPs. Yep. Nikola Jokic back-to-back, of course, the years prior to Joel Embiid winning it a season ago. Let's bring in that SportsGrid radio audience. Your hour number 3 of the early line at Sirius XM, channel 159. All of our radio terrestrial affiliates now in the fold as well. He is Donnie. I am Ben. There should be a cue or something of the sort to let us know when that radio audience needs to be let in. But it's all right. Donnie and I will do the work here. Donnie, I don't really, at this moment, have a strong take on who should be the NBA MVP frontrunner. Nikola Jokic's numbers this year are, again, of course, a statistical anomaly in terms of what he means across the stat sheet. The field goal percentage in the month of January is north of 75%. Joel Embiid, though, is going berserk in terms of leading the NBA at better than 34 points per game in scoring. He had 10 assists last night. You would expect 10 rebounds. He had 10 assists last night. He is doing everything that Nikola Jokic is doing as well, from filling up the stat sheet. But I will say, from the odds perspective, which I think is important, Joel Embiid has already missed double-digit games this year. You can only miss 17 now in all of the NBA regular season. You need to play, at minimum, 65 of your club's 82 games in a regular season to be considered for an NBA award at the end of the season. Those are the new guidelines put into place for the first time here in 2023-24. Philadelphia knows that. Nick Nurse knows that. Daryl Morey knows that. Joel Embiid even knows that, of course. So if we get 15, 16 absences for Joel Embiid this year with 2 weeks remaining, they're probably going to play him. But how does that all come into the equation if there is an injury, if something sidelines Joel Embiid throughout the NBA campaign? Because, Donnie, when you're betting the NBA MVP odds with only a 20-cent distinction between Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid right now, the Joker, the favorite, plus 240, JoJo just 20 cents behind at plus 260, not only are you betting performances in stats, in narratives and voter fatigue, you're also betting availability, and that is heavily skewed to Nikola Jokic at this moment.
And it is, and it should be. But also, Ben, let's get back to what the NBA was trying to do, which I think we all agreed with them. And it gets back to the point where I just talked about how enjoyable it was to watch Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic go toe-to-toe, because so many times on the NBA landscape, hey, 3 games out there, marquee, and one superstar plays, the other one doesn't. Well, why do we do this on a marquee? This was supposed to be a great battle. And the reason I bring that up is if Joel Embiid was under the guise this year of, okay, I'm just going to play sit once every 3 games here. I'm going to dominate the other 2, dominate the other 2, sit. Be like, come on, man. You played 60 games this year. You sat 22. You have a rest advantage over every other player, even though you are a superstar, and we want our superstars to play. But let's be honest with Joel Embiid's season here. These weren't, hey, we're just going to take a rest on a back-to-back. These were legitimate ankle and knee injuries here that you couldn't have said, hey, well, I could have played through that here. No, do that. That's what the interesting part of it comes up, because if it's actual games missed during the injury, that's sort of a low blow here. When the NBA was actually telling us, look, we understand injuries are a part of the game, but if I can put this award market out here, which also means first-team All-NBA and also higher elevation of salaries based on first-team All-NBA honors here, this could do a lot more damage than as we anticipated, because there are honest injuries where you're going to miss games at a time. But I know what the NBA was trying to do. Look, guys, you can't just sit out once a week here because this is rest and you're getting ready for the playoffs. I get that. But to the detriment, we might be looking at an MVP player that goes, what did you want me to do? I missed 2.5 weeks of the season because I hurt my knee. Now I can't win the MVP, even though I dominated every other basketball game.
Embiid has missed 10 total games this year, which, again, means he can only miss 7 of Philadelphia's. Let's do the quick math here. Philly is 26-13, 39 games. He can only miss 7 of Philly's final 43 games. Something to keep in mind. I wonder, Donnie, how beholden the NBA league office would be to the 65-game minimum if clearing away Joel Embiid statistically, performance-based, Philly is one of the top 4 seeds in the Eastern Conference. How stringent they would be in terms of those new guidelines if, let's say, Joel Embiid plays 63 of 82 games and is not sitting the final 2 weeks of the year because Philly is firmly locked into the 3 spot, or because he's just resting in terms of load management. And it's not just the MVP race. As Donnie alluded to, it's supermax deals, it's contract incentives, it's all of that coming to a head here for this 65-game minimum.
Yeah, and they should take that out, by the way. If you make it a first NBA team, that you get the extra pay bump here. That's not necessarily correct, and also not projecting what you think that player is going to be. But at the same time, let's just play devil's advocate. Joel Embiid missed the first 20 games of the NBA season. The Sixers were 5-15. Then he was the best player the rest of the way. The Sixers made the playoffs and had a solid record at the end of the season. He was hurt to start the season, so he can't get back. I know we're going to extremes at this point, but I like what the NBA did, but it might be a little bit counterproductive when you might actually have a legitimate NBA candidate going, oh, he missed 1 too many games? Stop it. Come on.
Yeah, it will be very, I am going to laugh at it. I think it's going to be pretty fun down the home stretch of this NBA regular season. And let's not forget, the Nuggets have already played 42 games this year. We're nearing the midway point of this NBA campaign. It just started, though, on the PGA Tour. We break down the American Express next. The Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices. And we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro football today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You were replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted him out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Shula, you replacing
was
him?
a disaster. Dubos was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy, and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I really thought the Lions were going to blow out the Rams. And in the first half, I was like, all right, I got one right here on this one. And then the Lions, what happened, Jacob? They, stopped playing.
The Lions offense is more of a complete unit right now because they have a really strong run game. And I know Tampa's run defense is good too, but all they need is David Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs to do a little, and that'll open things up for Jared Goff.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
In-game live, prime time. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It is the early portion of the 2024 PGA Tour season. This week is event number 3, the second full field event of the PGA Tour campaign in 2024. We welcome you back to a Wednesday Live right here on the early line. It's Ben, it's Donnie, and joining us is the man in the middle. It is Keith Stewart, helping us to break down the American Express out in La Quinta, California, where, Keith, one of my favorite things about the early portion of the PGA Tour season. It starts in Hawaii. We go to California next. For us, maybe in the Northeast or those in the Midwest that have been enduring the bitter cold of the last 2 weeks, it's nice to look out to places that feature sunshine.
Hey, there's no doubt about that, and Palm Springs is definitely one of those places. This is a wild week to have at the American Express. 3 golf courses, 156 guys competing in a Pro-Am format, with a 3-day cut. It's just, there's a lot of strange things happening this week. So let's run it. Let's get right into it.
Yeah, so Keith, let's start with that format. They're going to play on 3 different golf courses out in the desert. It is a Pro-Am, and as you mentioned, a 54-hole cut event, meaning everybody will play until the end of Saturday. How does the format impact your handicapping?
Well, I think for sure I'm looking at guys that play well in the Pro-Ams. And there's 2 of them in specific that I've targeted on the PGA Tour. One is here and the other one is at Pebble Beach. I mean, not everybody wants to run around with Bill Murray for 6 hours and play in these events, move from golf course to golf course. They did get a great field, and they have been getting a better and better field at the Amex. But for years, everyone knew it as the Bob Hope, and it wasn't the best field. We've had a lot of long shots win here as a result. The golf course setup isn't the most difficult, so it's tough to separate the lower tier PGA Tour players from the upper echelon guys, and those guys like to win. So Jon Rahm winning last year is definitely a little bit of an anomaly when it comes down to it. I mean, 6 of the last 10 winners have been longer odds, like greater than 66 to 1. So I look at that, and I also look at who plays well in the desert, who's good at the Shriners Children's Open in Vegas, and also who's good where we're going to see in a couple weeks at the WMPO in Scottsdale.
Keith, as we line up these golf courses, as you said, it is unique that they're going to play 3 different golf courses here. Is one easier than the other one, or some guys hoping to get a certain draw on which courses they're going to play this weekend?
Donnie, that's a great question, and the fact of the matter is it seems like yes. La Quinta Country Club is one of the 3. We also have at PGA West the Nicklaus Tournament course, and then we have PGA West, the stadium course that's designed by Pete Dye. Now, La Quinta Country Club, we have seen over the years that everyone that starts there in round one, it's the easiest of the three. They get off like a rabbit. They get off to a head start. And it's proven that those guys are more successful at making the cut than the other two courses if they start there first. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that those guys are the leader there is going to go 8-9 under par today or on Thursday. So what you're going to see is that if you get to La Quinta on Friday or even on Saturday, the third day, you're really pressing yourself to try to catch it and make that top 65 in that cut. So look for the guys at La Quinta that start there on Thursday.
Keith, as Donnie knows very well, the motto of the weekend is going very, very low. So as we look at the outright odds for the American Express, you mentioned in the past, not the strongest fields on tour. This week, though, world number one, Scottie Scheffler, is playing out in the desert, and he is the favorite to win this tournament outright at plus 500. $4 in front of Patrick Cantlay, Xander Schauffele at 11-1, Sung Jae Im 20-1, and Justin Thomas rounds out the top five at a 22-1 price. You see Scottie Scheffler, world number one, with a really short number. Keith, is there still value at looking at the very top of the odds board?
I just don't see it, guys. Those top three that the odds makers are obviously favoring, you're looking at Cantlay, Xander, and, of course, the number one man there, Scotty. The top 10 last year, all including Rahm, they averaged 30 birdies over the course of 72 holes. I just don't see Scotty making that many putts. And at 5-1 or 5.5-1, there is no value there. If you want to take him at a top five and then try to live bet him later, that would definitely be the way that I would approach it if he gets a little bit behind. But for me, I'm going to skip those top three. And, you know, one of the names you mentioned was Justin Thomas or JT, but I see a lot more value with another JT in this field, and that's JT Postman. He's been delivering lately. I mean, you look at the Century, he finishes fifth. That's an elite field. Then you go to the Sony, he finishes sixth, and he shoots the tournament low round at 61. I mean, come on. I mean, the guy's hot. You need a putter this week. He's gained on approach in 9 of his last 10 events. I like the Postman to deliver.
You take a look at the way these tournaments set up here. We're still a couple weeks, actually a couple months away from getting to Augusta, but on this early swing, has anybody caught your attention here that maybe coming into this golf season you weren't anticipating, that's playing very well, and say, you know what, Donnie, this might be one of those golfers to watch out for, not just in this tournament, but maybe down the line?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the best of the best have only played out in Kapalua, so we've only seen them once. The one theme that I'm really getting a gist of from hearing from the guys on tour, talking to caddies, players, et cetera, is how important these regular tour events and getting into them and playing very, very well. You look at the two winners we've had so far. Chris Kirk, 200-1 at the Century. Grayson Murray, 400-1 right there at the Sony. These guys, in order to get into these signature events, are going to go and play really, really aggressive. You saw it on Sunday at the Sony, and we're going to see it again this weekend. So that's the part, early trends in the season, that's what I'm looking at. Now, we get past next week at the Farmers. We're going to go 3 weeks in a row, Donnie, and I want to answer that question when we get to the Genesis, because we're going to go Pebble, signature event, then we're going to go WMPO, and then we're going to go Genesis. Yeah. Tiger will be back. The place will be lit up. And at that point, that's when Rahm had won 3 of the first 6, and everybody was like, whoa, this is the guy to watch for Augusta. And I think we're going to see a similar pattern. I'm just not quite sure who that is yet of the big names.
Using this early season swing for that sample size once we get to the bigger events later on in this PGA Tour season. So, Keith, when you look at the overall field, some strong players in it, some familiar names as well out in Palm Springs, California. The outright odds are all very long prices, pretty much outside of Scottie Scheffler. But when you look at some names to follow this week out in La Quinta in the finishing positions, top 5, top 10, top 20, top 40, who are some names we should key in on?
Well, when you look at the top 10, one of the guys that a lot of pundits are talking about to win, I don't see that, but it's Sung Jae Im. He's definitely somebody I'm favoring right there at a top 10 price. He's going to be over 2-1. In the top 20 range, I mean, you can't go wrong with Poston and Cole. I've been playing these guys at top 20 week after week, and they keep cashing. I mean, Eric Cole's just unbelievable. The guy plays every week. He led the tour in birdies in 2023. So if you need birdies this week, He'd be a good guy to call. And then a little further down the board in that top 40 zone, how about an Adam Hadwin? Always plays great in the desert. Of course, another guy I'm looking at, even as an outright, and the odds on him are perfect at 120 to 1. That's Nick Taylor. Yeah, he's the Canadian Open champ that won the hearts of an entire country last summer, making that 75-foot eagle putt. But don't forget, he lost in Scottsdale and finished runner-up to Rahm and Scheffler in the desert. He was awesome last week at the Sony, ball striking, the putter. So there's a couple of guys, placements down the boards in the 10, 20, and 40 zone.
Hey, Keith, by the way, quick question. We love rumors about golf here. Any thoughts here to Wyndham Clark joining the Live Golf Tour here and heading over to John Rahm's team?
Well, I tell you what, Donnie, that's another good question. And, where there's smoke, there's fire. It's interesting to me that Live starts in 2 weeks in Mayakoba, the first week in February. Remember last year, a couple guys like Brendan Steele, Danny Lee, they all announced in early February that they were leaving the PGA Tour. Rahm doesn't officially have a team yet. He has one player on his team, Kieran Vincent, who's from the Asian Tour. But there's a lot of talk circling around Caleb Surratt, the sophomore from Tennessee, and Wyndham Clark. Imagine this, Donnie. If Liv gets Wyndham, right? And let's say John Rahm calls you up and says, hey, you want $100 million? You just won the U.S. Open. You want to play with me at Liv, right? Liv would then own 3 of the 4 major winners from last year. Who could have ever thought that rumor would take place? And we're close to it.
Keith Stewart, we appreciate the time. More on the early line up next. Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I
favorite.
don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted them out. They still wanted them gone.
Mike Shula, you're replacing
was
him?
a disaster. Dubos was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy, and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I really thought the Lions were going to blow out the Rams. And in the first half, I was like, all right, I got one right here on this one. And then the Lions, what happened, Jacob? They stopped playing.
The Lions offense is more of a complete unit right now because they have a really strong run game. And I know Tampa's run defense is good too, but all they need is David Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs to do a little, and that'll open things up for Jared Goff.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
In-game live, prime time. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It is time to win with Zinn. Mark Zinno joins us live right here on this Wednesday on the early line on SportsGrid. I am Ben, he is Donnie, and Mark Zinno, the man in the middle. Mark Zinno, how was your opening round of the NFL postseason? Did Super Wildcard Weekend treat you kindly?
Well, overall, yes. I have some choice words for Sean McVay, and
I heard those.
I will never forgive him for what he did to me on Sunday and failing to score 24 points in that game on a repeated basis. If I would have known that he was such an idiot in the red zone, I would have thought differently of that game. I don't want to go back to this place. I finally started to get over it. We finally hit Wednesday, and I've moved on from Sean McVay. I may have wished all of his hair to fall out. I may have wished for his wife to cheat on him. I may have wished for a lot of things bad to happen to Sean McVay after what had happened.
Ben actually wished that as well, by the way.
Yeah, well, when I meant cheat on her, I meant with me. So, there is that. But nonetheless,
I got to take the reins here. I got to take the reins back on this show. That might fly with DMB on Football Full Circle, not live right here on a Wednesday on the early line on SportsGrid. So we've got 8 teams remaining, Zinno, in the chase for a Super Bowl championship here in the 2023 NFL season. The final 8 of the NFL. As you look at the bracket that still remains, as you look at the weekend ahead in the divisional round, which matchup intrigues you the most?
Well, I think the Packers-49ers matchup is the most intriguing, given what we saw from the Green Bay Packers and the way they were able to dismantle Dallas and the way they did it more with offense than anything else. I mean, it would have been one thing if Dallas's offense had played poorly and they had turned the ball over and the Dallas defense played well. Like, that was more of a viable game script. But what I saw from the jump in that game was Dallas defense be completely unprepared for Jordan Love and the Green Bay offense. But I still think this is a different world here what they're stepping into. Like, I don't think this is disrespect being shown to Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. I think the world is still forgetting a little bit about how much better the San Francisco 49ers are than the rest of the league. And I continue to have conversations with friends in the industry that I still power rate San Fran over Baltimore. Not by much, not as much as it was before those two teams played. But I still have San Francisco as the best team in football. And they are primed, I think, here to sort of bring the Packers and Jordan Love back down to earth.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to see that play out, but I did really like what I saw of the Green Bay Packers. And you're right. If you want to go toe-to-toe and put up points, it looks like Green Bay headed in the right direction. Mark, let's take a look at that game on Sunday, 6:30 p.m. in the cold. Now, when we say cold, Kansas City might be bringing a beach towel to this game, saying, what? 22 degrees. This is going to be fantastic. But they're taking on the Buffalo Bills with a 3-point line, actually currently sitting right now at the FanDuel Sportsbook at under 3 at 2.5 and a total of 45.5. It's Patrick Mahomes. It's Andy Reid. It's the Buffalo Bills who just got done hammering the Pittsburgh Steelers. How does this game play out? The shortest line of the week.
Buffalo wins. The first thing I did on Sunday night when the line popped out at Buffalo minus 2.5 is hit them on the money line, and I'm okay with it. I'll pay the extra juice. I'm not messing around. But Buffalo is winning this game. Look, this is not a Chiefs offense that anyone needs to be scared of, period. Now, is the Chiefs defense really good? Sure it is, yeah. But this is the moment here for Josh Allen in which the beginning of his coronation starts. This is the moment right here that if Josh Allen wants to escape a lot of demons and wants to be able to put himself in that elite category, it has to happen here. He's got to be able to beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. We know he can do it during the regular season. We've seen it several times before. And I'm kind of looking forward to watching Patrick Mahomes whine again as he leaves the field with Josh Allen about something that didn't go his way, so he can make another, silly little fool out of himself. And look, Buffalo is the better team here. And I've maintained that the entire time. Full disclosure, sitting on a Buffalo Bills AFC champion ticket at plus 850, which I locked in shortly after that Eagles loss. So I also have a future on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. So I really need Buffalo and Baltimore for back-to-back hedging weeks for me in the championship game and Super Bowl round going forward. But all that aside, again, Buffalo is the better team here. Kansas City does not have enough offensive firepower to walk into Buffalo and win this game. They can't settle for field goals here. And that's really what it's boiled down to, guys. Like, how aggressive is Andy Reid going to be going forward on fourth down and trying to put up 7 versus 3 Because if Buffalo can hold them to 3 the same way that Miami did repeatedly with a banged-up defense at home, Buffalo has a huge advantage in that sense.
The Bills went into their bye week at 6-6 and even 500. First game after the bye was a road trip to Kansas City, where the Bills have now won a regular season game in Arrowhead each of the past 3 years. Buffalo won that game 20-17. It was Kadarius Toney lining up offside, so on and so forth. The Bills have not lost since that game, week number 14. This will be just the second time this year the Chiefs have been booked as a dog, and the first time was week number 18, and Blaine Gabbert made the start. 12 times in the past 6 seasons with Patrick Mahomes under center, KC has been an underdog. They are 7-5 straight up, the only team in that span with a winning record outright as an underdog. Now to the first game up of the divisional round weekend, the first of 2 on Saturday. Zinno's Super Bowl ticket, the Baltimore Ravens, the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. Now a 9.5-point favorite against the Houston Texans. The over-under working slightly down at 43.5. Zinno, the Texans won outright as a home underdog last week against the Browns. Can they keep this game closer than that spread would say?
I think they can. I think the Ravens still and Lamar still have a little bit to prove. Obviously, we know his playoff struggles, but can we just attack this from this standpoint, guys? I'm sitting at a 9.5-point spread, and you see the total sitting where it is at, 43, 44, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea, what they're telling you here is that the Ravens are going to win this game 24-13, somewhere in that range. I would just take the Texans team total over here because I feel pretty confident that they're going to be able to get to 10 points, before the game gets out of hand. And then there's a garbage touchdown waiting somewhere for them to get closer to 20. Like, if the Ravens aren't blowing this team out, guess what? That means they're not scoring because we believe the Ravens defense is going to be enough to slow down the Texans offense. Look, I think C.J. Stroud is one of 2 quarterbacks in this round. You just have to blitz relentlessly. The other one is Jared Goff. They're both metrically terrible against pressure. So the way this game script works out is that if the Ravens don't get to 30 and push this thing over, then they have a real chance to lose this thing outright, right? Like that means the Texans are at 13-17 and we're talking 20-17 the whole way out, and it goes down to the wire. But I think the game script here is that the Texans are probably down 20-10, 17-10 at half. And then if the Ravens start to pull away, guess what? There's a garbage touchdown waiting somewhere for the Texans to get over 13.5 or 14.5, whatever the number may be for their team total. That's kind of the way I would attack this thing. I think the Texans can get close to 20 in this thing.
FanDuel has that listed at 16.5 as a team total here for the Texans, but I do think it's a pretty good look at this point. And you're right. If it is a blowout, C.J. Stroud isn't coming out of the game late third quarter. He's going to take all those reps in the playoffs, and certainly we've shown that he's certainly a pretty dynamic quarterback. We'll see how it plays out. Let's get to that second game on Saturday. I know you hit it off the top of the show here for us. Love versus Purdy. The reason I want to bring up this game with the Packers and the 49ers, not from a side perspective, which we probably all think the San Francisco 49ers will win. How about the total here, Mark? Listed at 50.5. We saw how explosive the Packers were. And the one thing that we know, and Kevin and I always joke about this on Pro Football Today, you pencil in, 30 points here to 28 points already off the bat for the 49ers. Are we getting a total in this game?
Well, here's the thing. That was my first look, was the over, either that or San Francisco's team total over, right? Like, I think those are the 2 things that jumped off the page at me. When I put game scripts together, guys, and I'm going to look at a total, I want to give myself as many outs as possible. There's a part of me that can't escape the Niners winning this thing 30-10. There's a part of me that can't escape them defensively just shutting down Green Bay and then using the run game to just grind this thing down in the second half. Like, I know we all expect points to be scored, but every time that seems to happen in the NFL playoffs, what happens the following week? Nobody does anything, right? I mean, we said, look, Dallas even got the 32. Granted, it was garbage time, but they still put up 30 points against the Green Bay defense. I know that there's a game script where the 49ers score 30. I know there's a game script where the 49ers score 27 and the Packers score 24. I'm trying to eliminate the game script here where Green Bay is not ready and prepared for the level of defense that they're going to face and completely get shut down in the first half. And then all of a sudden, it's just the Niners controlling the game with the run game. And they win the thing 33-10, 33-13 in that range, and it stays under the total. Like, There's a world here where San Fran can keep Green Bay to 17 or less. I don't think that's that far-fetched.
246.5, the passing yards prop for Jordan Love. He has had at least 256 in 8 of the last 10 for Green Bay. Quickly, here's the fourth and final matchup of the divisional round weekend that we haven't looked at just yet. In the Motor City, the Lions a 6.5-point home favorite against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What's the breakdown in Detroit on Sunday?
I hate both these teams, and I really hate the Buccaneers. That said, the Lions can't be laying 6.5 points. They're not 6.5 points better than a lot of teams in this league that aren't Carolina, the Cardinals, and the Giants. Like, they're just not. So I think that it's Tampa Bay or pass in this one for me.
That is the look that Mark Zinno has as of this moment, 48.5. You didn't have to be so concise in breaking down that game, but I guess you don't really like either of those two teams.
It's not even – the Lions should have lost that game. They absolutely should have lost that game. They had no business winning that game. Look at Ben's face. They had no business winning that game. So I'm not –
I love when you do this, though. I love when you do this. Should have lost the game, but they didn't, and they're playing in the divisional round and hosting a playoff game for a second consecutive weekend. Mark Zinno, don't rant so hard on Sunday night, or maybe do. More of the early line next. The Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted him out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Shula, you're replacing
was
him?
a disaster. Dubas was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy, and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I really thought the Lions were going to blow out the Rams, and in the first half, I was like, all right, I got one right here on this one. And then the Lions, what happened, Jacob? They, stopped playing.
The Lions' offense is more of a complete unit right now because they have a really strong run game. And I know Tampa's run defense is good too, but all they need is David Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs to do a little, and that'll open things up for Jared Goff.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Oh, we were still talking in the commercial break, and Donnie says something 3 seconds before we hit air that gets me. That's good. All right. Anyway, we get ready for a big night around the association, a big Wednesday night in college hoops as well. Conference action around the country in CBB. But we start with Donnie's favorite, a central focus in Cleveland. It's the Cavaliers and the Milwaukee Bucks. Milwaukee booked as a 3.5-point road favorite. The over-under 236.5. The last time we saw Milwaukee, it was Dame time from 40 feet away. The buzzer-beating win for the Bucks. But they have not been great as the favored side this year. Laying 3.5 on the road in the land. What do you expect tonight between the Cavs and the Bucks?
I'm going to take the Cavs here, and that's not based on just like, well, I think the Cavs will win the basketball game. Hear me out on this. Look, I like the Bucks. Quality team, but not playing up to their capabilities on a night-to-night basis. I take a look at the Cavaliers, a little bit underperforming on the season, but I like Donovan Mitchell in this game. Ben, last time they played, how about this? 36 minutes, 14 of 23 from the field, 34 points. And you know me, I like guys that come into the game red hot. Last 2 games for Donovan Mitchell. Now, granted, that game against Milwaukee was in December 29th. The last 2 games he's played against Chicago and Brooklyn, how about 45 points and 34 points? Field goal attempts in those last 2 games, 21 and 30. You're looking at a guy that's pressing it down here and hitting the gas pedal. I like the Cavs tonight with the points, and I'll take Donovan Mitchell over his points prop. Stay hot, kid.
The Cavs this year, just 7-8 against the spread as an underdog. But when you look at those covers, 6 of them, 6 of the 7, an outright victory. Again, Milwaukee has been booked as the favored side 39 times out of Milwaukee's 40 games this year, but 15, 23, and 1 against the number for the Bucks, who are riding a 3-game win streak since Giannis Antetokounmpo called out the equipment manager. Milwaukee's playing a little bit of better basketball, all relative, right? The Bucks still have the second best record in the Eastern Conference, 16 games north of 500, but they have only covered once in this 3-game win streak. And again, 15, 23, and 1 against the spread. Next up in the association, we go late night out to L.A. It's the Lakers and the Mavericks. A hefty total, 244, and a 3.5-point spread in favor of the Lakers. Only one prop listed for Dallas tonight, Donnie, and it's Luka Doncic. 32.5, his points prop at the moment for the Mavericks, making his return to the lineup for Dallas.
And by the way, let's anticipate they have their full complement of weapons here for Dallas, which again, Josh Green, Derek Jones, Derek Lively, okay. But we're really concerning ourselves with Doncic and Kyrie Irving. You talk about Doncic coming back into the fold, which is going to really help, and they're getting points. So if I get Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic in this game, I'm taking the Mavericks. But by the way, if you've been paying attention to what Kyrie Irving has been doing on the basketball court, how about this? Since the game on the 7th, going up against Minnesota, 35, 33, 44, 33, and 42. And I just told you about, hey, kid, stay out there hot, and Donovan Mitchell. Look at the shot attempts here since that game against Minnesota. 27, 25, 26, 27, and 28. Now, granted, he's not going to get those type of looks here if Luka Doncic does come back. But if you need a guy that's red hot and willing to take the shots, if Doncic is in full go tonight, even though he's going to be playing, let's go ahead and I'm going to take Dallas tonight in this game. I love what Kyrie Irving's doing. Adding Luka back into the fold, I'll take the points.
Dallas was abysmal as an underdog to start off this 2023-24 NBA season. Just 2-8 against the spread, and both covers were an outright win. In their last 6 games as a dog, Dallas has covered every single one, and they've won outright in 5 of those last 6, including here frequently in the last week and a half without Luka Doncic truly in the fold. Not only Kyrie Irving, Donnie, but Tim Hardaway Jr., inserted into the starting lineup in the absence of Luka Doncic, has been going berserk. A couple of games ago, late last week on a Thursday against the Knicks, Tim Hardaway Jr. and Kyrie Irving combined to score 74 total points. A couple of nights ago, it was 42 for Kyrie, 41 for Tim Hardaway Jr. He is filled in. Obviously, the offensive production not going to be as sky high for either Kyrie or Tim Hardaway Jr. with Luka Doncic back, and you see it reflected in his prop tonight, 32.5. But the Mavericks have been much better as an underdog the Lakers still have only won 6 of their 18 games since winning the NBA Cup in that first ever NBA in-season tournament. And as a favorite this year, the Lakers just 10-15 against the spread. A huge night around the association. A couple of other spots to highlight. The Utah Jazz, winners of 6 in a row, a 3.5-point home favorite, Donnie, against a Warriors team that through 40 games this year, 4 games below 500, and Golden State is a road underdog in Salt Lake.
Yeah, a couple days off here. By the way, last time out, Steph Curry only 3 for 9 from 3-point range here. You're going to need to lean on him a lot more than usual, which, again, we're not talking about young guys in the backcourt in Curry and Thompson. There's not a lot to love for me. So if we play this game out, right, older, aging team, not playing great basketball, heads in to play the Utah Jazz, who aren't a great basketball team, but in elevation, and the Utah Jazz are favorite, that screams, hey, guys, take the Warriors here. It's free money. Stop it. I'm going the Jazz tonight, Ben.
Me too. I'm laying the 3.5 with Utah. We mentioned this early when breaking down the Sixers, by the way. 22-8 against the number in their 30 games as a favorite this year. Philly, one of 5 teams around the NBA to cover in more than 70% of their games, booked as a favorite. The team with the best cover percentage as a favorite is the San Antonio Spurs. 3 games, a perfect 3-0 against the spread. The other teams around Philadelphia, not often a favorite. 12 games or less. Philly's been a favorite 30 times this year, but that includes the Utah Jazz. 9 times booked as the favorites. Utah's won 6 games in a row, and when they are booked as the favorite side, it is for a reason. The Jazz 7-2 against the number as a favorite this year. Again, 3.5. The Warriors got to find it. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Draymond back for a second straight game. Nope. I look at Utah laying 2.5. Boston 16-point favorite against San Antonio. The Minnesota Timberwolves on the road in the Motor City against the Pistons, who won their most recent game against the Wizards. Minnesota booked as a 12-point road favorite. Now to college basketball, a big night of conference hoops and a showdown, a top 20 tilt in stores. The number 1 team in the country now, the UConn Huskies. Here's my favorite thing about UConn being ranked number 1 again for the first time since 2009, 15 years ago. In that 15-year span between number 1 rankings in the AP poll, Donnie, the Huskies have won 3 national championships. But unlike college football, there is no end of the year AP top 25 in men's college basketball after the NCAA tournament. But a showdown in stores, number 1 UConn, 18th ranked Creighton, and a 6.5-point spread in favor of Dan Hurley's Huskies. Over under 143.5. What's the approach tonight out in Connecticut?
I'm going under in this game. And by the way, the Big East here, one of those conferences that's really into conference play already. Now, granted, everybody's played games, but in the Big East, you're looking at 6 games already banked for most of these teams, the 7th Big East game. So there's some numbers that we can use and take out that silly season, right? We're playing a lot of underperforming teams here, hammering, which really slant your statistics here. But now if we just take a look at conference play, the number 1 offense in Big East play, it's Connecticut. We know who the number 1 defense in Big East play is. It's actually Creighton. And also, styles make fights here, Ben. Average length of possession on offense for Connecticut in Big East play, that's 9th out of 11 teams. Creighton, 9th out of 11 teams on defense there at possession length, which means they're going to run their offensive sets. And I just told you, Donnie, UConn's fantastic on offense. But again, Creighton should be able to match it. You take a look at the effective field goal percentage, which is going to take a look at turnover percentage and offensive rebounds and getting to the line. Both of them number 1. So they're going to offset each other. Also, you take a look at easy buckets down low, which UConn usually gets with their big men. You know who's number 1 in conference play defending inside the arc? That is the Creighton defense here. So I'm going to take a look at this game and say to myself, I'm going under. Forget about the side. I think the pace of play makes some sense. A little bit slower pace. Great defense in Creighton here. I like the under in this game, Ben. I do.
UConn has gone over in 4 straight, but Creighton a better defense than the Huskies have seen as of late. By the way, the Blue Jays only an underdog 1 other time this year against Marquette earlier in Big East play. Lost by 5 as a 3.5, 4-point road favorite in Milwaukee. So a competitive game. UConn 5-1 in Big East play. Creighton 4-2. The Huskies have been a single-digit favorite only 6 times overall this season, Donnie. Both 5-1 straight up and against the spread. That one loss and non-cover when they were a 7.5-point favorite against Seton Hall in the beginnings of Big East play. And obviously, Hall ball a little bit better than we all expected. Shaheen Holloway's Pirates 6-1 in conference action with a big victory at the Rock last night over St. John's. There was only one remaining undefeated side in Big 12 play. We're talking about 6-7 games in Big East conference action so far. We're into our fourth game in Big 12 play. Texas Tech, the last remaining undefeated side, 3-0 in Big 12 play. Why are they a 12.5-point road underdog tonight in Houston against the Cougars? Well, Houston just 1-2 in Big 12 play, losing both of their games last week after starting off the year a perfect 14-0. I was hoping, Donnie, this number would be single digits, buyback, rebound spot for Houston. It's 12.5.
Yeah, it's 12.5 here, which again is begging. Say, what do you mean? Texas Tech, number one in the Big 12, undefeated here. We talked about it at the opening parts of the show. You're looking at this Texas Tech team. Sure, 3-0 in conference, no matter who you play, is very good, but they haven't played the elite prospects just yet. That's going to start tonight against Houston. And if you saw that graphic there, 129.5 is really low. But again, styles do make fights. We don't have enough conference play statistics here to really load up. Once we get that 7, 8, 9, 10 games, we haven't had that yet in the Big 12. But if we're going overall in the season, the number one defense in the country is still Houston based on the law of averages. Because why? They're really good. And also, they slow it down. Defensive presence here, Ben, 344th in the country, which means they are going to stifle you and make you throw 4, 5, 6, 7 passes just to get an open look. And you take a look at Texas Tech on offense, right around 300 in the country in tempo there. So that means not a lot of shots here against a vice grip defense. Again, I'm not going to lay the number here, even though it screams you're supposed to take Houston in this spot. I like the under again. I think Houston really grips down on Texas Tech in this game, and it's a lower scoring battle.
Best defense in the country, a team that plays at a slow tempo, 20th slowest in all of college basketball. Go Temple, by the way. Team that has been under in 12 of 16 games this year. I would almost think, Donnie, that if Houston were going to respond, they would shellac Texas Tech tonight. They put up 85. It's a big victory in H-Town. But actually, if Houston responds, it's probably a Kelvin Sampson Cougs type of game, staying under 129.5. Kentucky looking to respond as well. Lost in overtime this weekend against Texas A&M. Looking to bounce back tonight. The Cats booked as a 6.5-point favorite against another stingy top 10 defense in Mississippi State.
Yeah, should be a fun one to watch. Kentucky doesn't turn the basketball over at all. Effective field goal percentage, top 11 in the country. But you're right. Mississippi State does found themselves on defense. But if you're being honest, it's hard to say, well, I think Kentucky wins, but Mississippi State covers this game. No, I think Kentucky wins this game. Therefore, I'm going to lay it with Kentucky as well to win by margin.
Completely agree. I think it's a line that reads Kentucky and Coach Cal. I would lay the 6.5. Late night out in the Pac-12, Arizona, a 19.5-point favorite against USC. They might have Bronny. They might have Boogie Ellis. It's an 8-9 start for the Trojans this year under Andy Enfield. 0-4 straight up as an underdog, just 1-3 against the spread. A best bet from us up next to round out a Wednesday on the early line. The Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted him out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Shula, you're replacing
was
him?
a disaster. Dubos was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I really thought the Lions were going to blow out the Rams. And in the first half, I was like, all right, I got one right here on this one. And then the Lions, what happened, Jacob? They stopped playing.
The Lions offense is more of a complete unit right now because they have a really strong run game. And I know Tampa's run defense is good too, but all they need is David Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs to do a little, and that'll open things up for Jared Goff.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
In-game live, prime time. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live right here on the early line on this Wednesday. We close out our 3 hours together. I'm Ben, he's Donnie, and this is the SportsGrid app, the ultimate sports betting companion app available for download at both the Apple and the Play Store. Scan the QR code on your screen. Available in the SportsGrid app, things known as five-star plays. In other words, those are best bets. So are these. Before we say farewell and goodbye on this Wednesday, it is time for Bye, Bye, Bye. What tickles the fancy on this Wednesday for a best bet from Donnie Rightside?
This number is so high, it should be illegal here, Ben. It's the Milwaukee Bucks and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, I was probably hoping this number would be 27.5, 28 points here for a points prop for Donovan Mitchell. He's sitting at 33.5, which screams, what? He just has an unbelievable performance here. Well, I think the tempo is going to be there. I'm going over 33.5 points for Donovan Mitchell tonight for the Cleveland Cavaliers going up against the Milwaukee Bucks. 35 plus tonight for the young Spider.
A couple of looks in the NBA. The Jazz booked as a 3.5-point favorite in Salt Lake against the Warriors for a reason. The Knicks have gone under in 7 of their last 8 games. They have won 6 of those 8. If they're going to win at home tonight as a 5-point favorite inside Madison Square Garden against the Rockets, I would maybe lean under as well. Now, college basketball, a game we talked about in Lexington at Rupp tonight. Kentucky looking to bounce back from an overtime defeat against Texas A&M over the weekend. A 6.5-point spread that to me is a very strong Kentucky line. I would lay the number with the Cats. And Donnie said this earlier. What's going on with Steve Pikiell and the Scarlet Knights? Maybe middle of the pack this year in the Big Ten, but not just one conference win. I think it's a magical season in Lincoln for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, but it ain't Jersey Mike's Arena out there in Piscataway. It's the Rack. Rutgers laying 2.5 at home tonight against Nebraska. We will talk to you tomorrow on a Thursday morning, bright and early at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. He's Donnie Rightside. I'm Ben Stevens. We'll talk tomorrow.